Welcome to Promote, Profit, Publish. I'm your host, Juliet Clark. And before we get started today, I want to remind you to go over to YouTube and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Super Brand Publishing. You can see all of these interviews live. So you can actually see these people while they're talking, what they're doing, what their background looks like here. And then don't forget to go over and take the Promote, Profit, Publish quiz, www.promoteprofitpublishquiz.com, and find out if you're ready to publish or if you've got some work to do on your platform. So today's guest is Mark Evans, and Mark is a fractional CMO. For those of you who don't know that, that is a chief marketing officer for a fast-growing B2B and SaaS companies looking to attract and engage better prospects. His areas of expertise include brand positioning, storytelling, strategic planning, and tactical execution oversight. Mark has published 3 books about marketing and storytelling, and he produces a weekly podcast called Marketing Spark, which is about 15 minutes, so it's a really easy listen. And he does interviews with marketers, entrepreneurs about the lessons they've learned in the trenches. So welcome, Mark.
Thank you, Julia. It's nice to be here.
Oh, it's great to have you. So let's start out with what is this fractional CMO? Because I'm seeing a lot of fractional officers in the marketplace. Can you explain a little bit about that?
So it's funny when you were introducing me, I thought you said chief marketing officer as opposed to
no,
chief.
I said chief. Yes, he's very cheap too. He's Canadian, so no.
Maybe subconsciously, maybe that's it. Because I mean, the reason why fractional is becoming so popular is that senior leaders are expensive. Like a chief marketing officer is $150,000 to $200,000 a year, plus benefits, plus perks, and everything that goes with that. And a lot of companies want senior leadership, but they don't want to pay that much money. And the same goes for chief financial officers or the head of sales. So a lot of small companies that want to grow, that want to tap into expertise and experience, they want that expertise, but they can't afford it. So the alternative is get somebody for a couple of days a week or half time, and you enjoy the best of both worlds. You get somebody who's cost effective, you get some flexibility if that person doesn't work out or you have to use them in different ways, you can do that. And you get somebody who's been there, done that. So I think that has a lot to do with the rise of fractional. And also, as important, I think a lot of companies earlier this year cut back on their senior management teams. When the economy looked like it was going down and over a cliff, a lot of companies did what they needed to do and they cut back. And now they're recognizing that they need to move forward and they need some firepower. And that's why fractional, I think, is becoming a more attractive option.
Absolutely. And it's not just the marketing industry. People are doing it with their accounting teams. People are doing it. A lot of people I know, lawyers coming in like your fractional legal counsel instead of a retainer and, the big money deals they used to have before. It's so many hours a month. And so from a standpoint of what you and I do, let's talk a little bit about our benefits from it, because I do a little bit of it as well. Probably not as much as you. I only have one account I do this for, but I love the flexibility. I don't have to go to the office. What are some of the stuff you love about doing it?
Well, the flip side to what companies want is what employees or people like us get. So we want to have that steady engagement, but we don't want to go to the office. We don't want a full-time gig because we also want the flexibility to do other kinds of work or side hustles or spend time with your friends and family, all the good things that go along with that. So, I mean, that's the benefit to me, is that I like to be the master of my own domain. I don't want to work for one person, although it's nice being vested with a particular company so that you can see them progress and you can watch them improve. But at the same time, for me, variety is the spice of life. It keeps me interested. It keeps me engaged. It's the kind of work-life thing that I want to do right now. And I'm, to be honest with you, I'll never go back to a full-time job. I would be, that's
I hear you.
Yeah.
I hear you. I mean, I don't think I would either. I love the variety of it too, because you really can get inside of corporate America. You can really get bored with what you're doing. And I think working on several different accounts gives you a lot of variety, a lot of, you stay excited and engaged about it.
It's a win-win proposition because, as you say, as a senior leader, a marketer, salesperson, financial person, you get to dabble in lots of different things. You get to work with many different entrepreneurs, take on different types of challenges. But on the flip side, the companies that you work with get your been there, done that kind of experience. So you see lots and lots of different scenarios. So a lot of the challenges that they're running into, you've already seen them. So you have some knowledge and some insight into how you can effectively help them. And that's why I think fractional is such a good model. And I think you're going to see a lot more of that, because a lot of people want to do their own thing, but they don't want to fly the solo flag. They want the best of both worlds. Mm-hmm. And so I think there's benefits for both sides. And as our economy remains volatile, I think that's the model that's going to work the best.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really great. So tell us a little bit more about your books. You've written books on storytelling and marketing, and storytelling is so important, especially if you're an author, because there has to be a little bit of storytelling to keep people engaged inside of the book.
So a little bit of context. Many, many years ago, I was a newspaper reporter. So professionally, I wrote stories for a living. And what I did was I wrote about technology, and I turned complex technology into things that were accessible so that everybody can understand the impact of the technology and why it made a difference. And that was a great training ground for me to become a storyteller. And what I've done in terms of marketing and helping clients is turn their products, their people, their vision into user-friendly stories that a broad audience or a specific audience can get excited about. Because I often think of storytelling as doing, well, four things. One is around educating, engaging, entertaining, and encouraging. Sort of the 4 E's of storytelling. Mm-hmm. If you can do one of those along the way with your sales and marketing, then you're being successful. You're going to turn prospects into clients. But if you can do more than one, if you can engage and entertain at the same time, then the funnel becomes a lot more smooth, right? There's less friction. People become, to get them from tip to toe, from prospect to customer, becomes a lot easier. And a lot of companies are still getting their heads around storytelling. Like, how do I do it? Why do I do it? Who gets to tell the stories? Who do I get to tell them to? So we're still, as much as we talk a lot about brand storytelling, there's still a lot of companies are still sort of in the early stages of trying to master it.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. And the storytelling extends to so much more than just the books or your marketing. I saw a speaker last week, and I just want to say, granted, it was his first time speaking, telling his story, and he could have used you, Mark, because he's a very high level business person, but you could tell he hadn't had any training. So the story was there, but the value add wasn't. It was a very choppy story, and I could see with a little bit of polishing, it would have been really inspirational. So how do you do that inside of a story when you have your story, but just needs a little cleanup?
Well, one of the things you have to think about is, what does the audience want to hear? What's going to engage the audience? Because when you think about when you were a child and you listened to stories were dramatic. They were interesting. They made you curious. You didn't know what was around the corner. And so they had you in rapt attention. And the fact of the matter is that people don't like facts. They don't remember facts. Facts are boring. Facts are important, but they're boring. Mm-hmm. Stories are interesting. So you can say, let's say, for example, let's say Airbnb, for example, as a company that most people can relate to. So the fact of the matter is that Airbnb allows you to efficiently book places to stay online around the world. So if you want a place to stay, you go to Airbnb. That's a fact. It's also a really boring story. But if you're trying to excite people and inspire them about travel and about using your service, the Airbnb story is, through Airbnb, you can experience different places and different people. You can get a sense of belonging anywhere you travel around the world. And that's the Airbnb story. That's the inspirational, encouraging, exciting story about Airbnb. And so they tell stories around that theme, around the fact that as a traveler, you can have these experiences. And as a host, you can also have these great travel experiences, meeting new people and doing new things. And so it's about really, in a sense, storytelling is really about the experience delivered by your product, not the product itself.
Mm-hmm.
So if you were going to tell a story, for example, about a blender, like a common kitchen utility, the blender can puree, it can chop, it can blend, to do all things, but the story could be that you could use it to make healthier foods, and then you could lead a better lifestyle, and you could have more energy, and you could spend more time with your family. That's the inspirational story. So
Right.
it's a different way of looking at the world. As a journalist, it comes natural to me. As for many marketers and salespeople, it's a little more difficult. But the one thing I will say is that we spend about 60% of our time telling stories. So think about what you did in the weekend when you talked to your friends. Did you tell them the facts about your life? No, you told stories about your life and the things that you did and the movies that you saw and all those things that made the conversation interesting. And we just have to take that same approach and apply it to business.
Very, very true. I didn't even think about that we tell stories in our everyday, although I do. I have a really raunchy sense of humor, so usually things turn out pretty funny. So tell us about the books. What were your 3 books about?
Well, the first one was at the height of the dot-com boom, called Invest Trends, and it was about how to invest in dot-com stocks. And the only problem is about a month before the book came out, the stock market crashed.
Oh!
So that was a disaster. That didn't work out. So that's a good story. It's a sad story, but it's a good story. And then I wrote a couple of stories. In the last 2 or 3 years, I wrote one called Brand Storytelling. And my most recent book is called Marketing Spark. And really, they have a common theme, is really to how to leverage the power of story in different channels and different places. So there's the fundamentals of storytelling, the things that we've talked about a little bit about how to embrace storytelling, how to have that storytelling approach, how to think about delivering experiences to your prospects and customers. And then the second part of the book is how to apply it to different marketing channels, whether it's video or your website, infographics, email marketing, all the things that are sort of the nuts and bolts of everyday marketing. Mm-hmm. And what I'm trying to do is connect the dots to this whole concept of storytelling, which sometimes becomes very lofty and hard to embrace, to the realities of where and how you tell stories. Because really, if you're sending out an email to somebody or you're writing a blog post, you're creating a story, right, in a sense. I mean, something that is designed to engage and inform people. So the books are very prescriptive. There's lots of worksheets and there's tools, and it's just, I consider it more of a workbook than a book. It's a book that sits on your desk. So that if you're an entrepreneur and you want to do different types of marketing, then you'll go to the book and go, how do I do this? Oh, okay, these are best practices. Oh, here's some great tools, and here's some worksheets that are going to guide me through it. So it's very much a do-it-yourself book for a lot of people who don't want to hire a marketing agency or can't afford to hire a marketing person, but you still got to do marketing and you still got to do stories. So that was the audience that I designed the book for.
Oh, that's really great too. We get a lot of people who don't know anything about marketing, and it's a little bit frustrating sometimes. That sounds like a good starter book for them. I had a class a while back where I taught basic marketing, and I teach it in a very different way. I think you have to go for the relationships, and a click is not a relationship. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's a book I read recently by a guy named Terry O'Reilly. He's a very well-known Canadian advertising executive, and it's called This I Know. And in the most recent chapter, he made this amazing statement that's completely obvious, and he said that people buy products from people, not companies.
Right.
So when you buy something, it may not be sort of an online service or something, but when they buy your service, for example, they're not buying your service, they're buying you.
Exactly.
And your people. They want that experience, that expertise. They want to feel like they've made the right decision because they have a relationship with the right person. And the same for my business because there's lots of other marketers out there. Why would they hire me? Because they buy the relationship, they buy the sense of trust and the sense of confidence. And that's why for especially for small and early stage companies, a big part of the story is the founder entrepreneur. Making them front and center, putting a face to a company is really important, because as a customer, you want to feel like you're dealing with somebody that you can believe in, right? Think about it when you go to your favorite restaurant. Now, the food may be okay, the atmosphere may be okay, but why do you go? Because the person who owns the restaurant greets you in such an amazing way. They remember your name and the names of your kids. And and the things that you're into, and so that's that relationship right there. And so if you can combine storytelling and relationships, it's a powerful 1-2 punch.
Yeah. This is so important because I think over the last 5 or 6 years, we've gotten very invested in clicks. We were led to believe that clicks are relationships. And I think that's where a lot of entrepreneurs really get off tracks, because they think, oh, I have this great funnel and people are clicking, but they're not. I mean, you can't have a relationship without talking to someone. You can't have a relationship without getting to know them. And the truth is, a lot of times we hire people who are a lot like us. We resonate with their personality. So how can people use that storytelling to attract those type of people?
Well, step one is being very customer centric, and marketers talk about being customer friendly all the time. But I find it really interesting because it's a fundamental of marketing. Like, you have to sell a product that your customers want to buy, and your marketing needs to reflect their needs, their interests, their questions, their goals, all the things about everything to do about them, but not about you. So when you're trying to embrace storytelling, you're telling stories about them, their problems, their needs, their aspirations. So it's really not about your product or your features or your benefits or your price. It has nothing to do with that. Eventually they'll want to know that information, but eventually the early stories are about, this is Bob, he's a customer before his life was miserable because he suffered from these problems, but then he discovered our product and look what he's doing now, his business is growing. I mean, it's as simplistic as that sometimes, with a lot more, there's a lot more creativity involved, but it really starts with the customer and really addressing their questions and their issues. And then you can figure out the different channels that you're going to use. But, I think really, it really comes down to showing that your brand is like, there's a personality to your brand. Like, you're not just somebody selling widgets. There's actually, you have a vision, you have a mission, there's a culture, there's things that you believe in. You can be fun or irreverent or quirky, but there's something about your brand that makes you different from everybody else. Because at the end of the day, you have to ask yourself, why does storytelling matter? Why should we tell stories? Because you want to get people to do things. And stories can be very inspirational. So if you want them to buy a product or a service, the best way to do that is to attract them with something that's interesting. And then you can start to sell them, right? To try to sell them right off the bat. I mean, you and I have been on LinkedIn, and somebody sends you a direct message and they're trying to sell you something right off the bat. They haven't engaged you. They haven't told you a story. They're just trying to get you to buy something. Well, that's not going to work these days, because people don't buy that way. They want to be, it's almost like they want to date before they get married. They want to feel like you're interested in them. You recognize who they are and what they need. And then you're going to do whatever it takes to eventually win them over.
Yes. And that is so true, because I think that's what a lot of the funnels in the past have led people to believe is, okay, you're going to click on this, you're going to get a gift. And in the next 7 emails, we're going to develop a relationship and you're going to buy something. And the truth is that most of the time, people don't even open that gift. They never open the emails. And it seems like we've been really pretending for a long time.
There's a lot of talk about this concept of marketing qualified leads. So just for a quick explanation, a marketing qualified lead is if someone gives you an email address based on an action. So to download a free report, or to access a webinar, or to get your email. And so marketers have rallied around this type of marketing because, oh, look how many leads we're getting. Look how many email addresses we're getting. In my point of view, and increasingly a lot of marketers are thinking this way, is those are not expressions of interest. That's just somebody taking an action. What really matters at the end of the day is conversations. For me, that's the ultimate marketing metric, especially if you're not selling a high volume product, right? Like, you and I are in the business of having conversations, because when we have conversations, we're pretty successful when we sell. So that's what our marketing is all about. And a lot of smaller companies, that's what your marketing should be all about. Having a conversation, getting someone to call you, to click on the contact page, to hit the chat bot, whatever it is. Because once you have a conversation with somebody, once you get them on the phone, then you've got an opportunity to inform, engage, and eventually to convince them that your product can meet their needs.
Right. That's very, very good. So, where can we find you? Because you're kind of our relationship guy now. Where can we
Well,
find you if we want to reach out or and talk to you some more?
so like a lot of digital animals, I'm pretty much everywhere, but I would say the best places to find me are on LinkedIn. So if you do a search for Mark Evans, fractional CMO for B2B companies, that's one place. The other is my website, which is marketingspark.co, not .com. That was taken, so I had to sell for .co. And if you do a search on Amazon and you look up Marketing Spark, you'll find my book there.
Oh, fantastic. So, Amazon, go over and buy Mark's book. And thank you so much for being on today.
Thank you for having me. This is great. I really enjoy talking about marketing and conversations.